Yeah, good morning to one and all. I welcome each and every participants and the personality around us. You see, like once we have a good friend, those who are the achiever at the top of the positions in their own manner, and they have grown like. So they feel like it has to be given back to the profession also. Same happens with our friends from the industries, whether it is Ajay Seth ji, Kaushik Chatterjee Saab and Sushil Agarwal ji, and the moderator Pramod Bagri Saab also. So I welcome each one of you, every one of you, and each and every participants around me, and our co-chairman of the committee, Durgesh Kabra ji. Friends, it is always said the debate and discussions or the guidance from the senior ones for matters for the younger ones. Same goes with the committee also. This committee is being guided by our leadership at the helms of affairs, our President Nihar Jambusaria ji, and our Vice President Dr. Devashish Mitra ji. They are being guided to this committee, and this committee has outperformed and taken an initiative of bringing out so many good things, so many new initiatives, first to its credit during this year, or surpassing the even the placements in the our first level campus, which is the original level, and the in the career ascents, which is the second level campus also. With those kind of initiatives, this committee has outperformed and continue to be the guidance coming from the industry, guidance coming from the leadership will make this committee more stronger. And today, you see, like the personality, like all three, and the moderator Pramod Bagri ji will taking us through number of new way of understanding out of the box to be brought in the minds, so that strength of the mind and strength of the intellects, if they combines together, so we can bring out the economy of the country to the newer level by this profession only. This is the only profession by which we can make the industry to grow with, the corporate to make the newer things, and the economy to grow with, and so accordingly the nation growth path to be brought into the track, so that we achieve the $5 trillion economy, which is the vision of the Prime Minister of our country or the nation as such. With these words, I welcome again to each one of you. Now I'll request my co-chairman, CA Durgesh Kabraji, for his words of wisdom to start with, and subsequently it will be taken over by the moderator. Now I'll request Durgesh Kabraji to share his words. Durgesh ji, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman sir, and Siraj Chudji. Under your leadership, this particular committee, which is known as Committee for Members in Industry and Business, is doing fantastically well, and various new initiatives have been taken this year, which includes EDP, MDP, and BLDP, which are the main thing, and also a television series on the successful chartered accountants, either as an entrepreneur or as CEO. Friends, the activities are being narrated by our chairman sir, and beside that, we are doing wonderfully well in the campus interview also. And in the campus interview, let me tell you that this particular year we had 2 campus interview, and in first campus interview, all our chartered accountants, young chartered accountants were observed, and in the next one, the vacancies were more and the availability of chartered accountants were less. And that's how in the second campus interview, all the chartered accountants again got the opportunity, and still the chartered accountants are in demand and need. Besides this, friends, since the all other activities have been either discussed various times, but today I'll perform another task, which is the important task to introduce panelists, all the 3 panelists, as well as the moderator of this particular program, which is known as Sneak Peek in the life of the CFO. And we have with us today, friends, 3 leading CFO of leading group or companies, one from Tata, one from Maruti, and one from Birla. And the moderator is Mr. Pramod Bagri. And let me tell you, friends, I will start with CA Ajay Seth, who is the Chief Financial Officer and member of the Executive Board of the India's largest car manufacturer, Maruti Suzuki India Limited. Under Mr. Seth's stewardship, Maruti Suzuki has witnessed a tremendous growth in terms of revenue from 12,000 crore to 80,000 crore as of today. And friends, let me tell you, because of this company has become most profitable company which is being professionally managed. Mr. Seth is a chartered accountant and having over 35 years of experience. He has occupied various positions, senior positions into various other organizations also, which includes Escort, Joseph, Cyril Bank Board, and Aisha. Friends, he has been bestowed with the multiple awards also as a leader of the profession and leader of the enterprise where he has served. Friends, for the best CFO, he has been awarded best CFO, large cap manufacturing infra by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, best CFO award 2020 by Auto and Auto Parts by the Institutional Investor, Hall of Fame award from CFO India Forum, and best CFO award from Business World 2017, greatest CFO from Asia 1 2016-17, and the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for the best CFO manufacturing sector in 2016. So friends, these are the various things which are about Mr. Seth, and I'm sure what kind of sneak and tricks were there into his life to be at the top of pinnacle, at the pinnacle of the professional career in his life. With this, we welcome you, sir, to this show or sneak peek in the CFO's life. Now, coming to Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee, another chartered accountant, a very learned person, and who is the CFO and executive director of Tata Steel, one of the largest steel manufacturers in the country, and I would say probably in the globally also. Friends, Mr. Chatterjee has held various boards of several Tata companies. Mr. Chatterjee has many laurels in his hat for his outstanding contribution as CFO, and he has been declared one of the India's best CFO in 2005 and 6 by Business Today magazine and by CNBC in 2017. He was awarded the best performing CFO in the metal sector by CNBC TV18 again earlier in March 2012 also. He was declared India's best executive for the year 2019 by Asia Money magazine, and he was honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Financial Express at FE CFO Award 2019. That recognized the veteran made finance professional who have made an exemplary contribution to the industry. Friends, Mr. Chatterjee is an active speaker and has been a speaker in various conferences in India and abroad, including the McKinsey Global CFO Forum 2008 conferences organized by the Economic and Financial Times, London. Friends, if I need to speak for Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee, the list is very long. The only thing which I can tell for Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee is he has turned this particular company, Tata Steel. You know what was the market cap at one point of time and what is the market cap today. So he has done wonderfully well and bringing up this company as a financial wizard for Tata Steel. Friends, we welcome Kaushik Chatterjee to this particular show, which is known as Sneak Peek in the CFO's life. We have with us Sushil Agarwal ji, who is from Aditya Birla Group, which is one of the India's largest and most prestigious private conglomerate. And friends, let me tell that beside, I have seen him growing from the very early days because we know each other since 86 onwards. So we have that kind of relationship. And from beginning, I would say from at each level, he has done wonderfully well in the Birla Group, and he has reached to the pinnacle of the positions. Friends, as I told you, that he is from Birla Group, which is one of the largest private sector conglomerate, which is having over $46 billion in revenue in the fiscal year 2020. Mr. Sushil Agarwal is the group CFO of this conglomerate and also serves as a director in the Aditya Birla Management Corporation Private Limited, an apex body of the group, and in various other listed and unlisted entities of the group. A veteran with the group, Mr. Agarwal has traversed one of the most exciting growth journey we have come across so far, friends. He joined Grasim, one of the group companies, in the year 1988 as an officer in the project division. He served in diverse roles such as an executive assistant, CFO, CEO for 27 years before he formally took over the role of group CFO in 2016. Friends, let me tell you, you need to come out of the comfort zone. Then only you can reach to these kind of posts and the pinnacle of your professional career. If you do not come out from this, then it will make a lot of difference. In his own words, I would like to say that Mr. Agarwal
myself
has done
and
different
Vice
things,
President
do things differently.
we are here, so
His role in multiple capacities before he took over the group CFO, mental
how
helped
much time
him
you
create and appreciate for building a strategic perspective of CFO function. With this, friends, let me tell you one more thing, that Mr. Agarwal have been awarded as the India's
how much
greatest
time you
CFO in
are Vice President and myself are together.
third edition of Asia One,
Vice
India's greatest brand and leader award also he has been given in 2017-18 again. And in recognition of his stellar contribution, he was awarded the Business Leader Corporate CFO Award at 11th ICAI Award 2017. He has also been honored with the Chairman's Exceptional Contributor Award in 2000 and Chairman's Outstanding Leadership Award in 2014, which is most prestigious as far as it is concerned in the Birla Group. Mr. Agarwal, as I know him from the beginning. He's a chartered accountant, a very simple person who believes in the humanity at large. Friends, with this, we welcome Sushil Agarwal ji to this particular show. And then the turn comes up Pramod Bagri ji, who is co-author of CFO Niti. He has written a book where 6 CFO, who are the top CFO of the India, have been considered. And of 6, 3 are here, Mr. Chatterjee, Mr. Said, and Mr. Sushil Agarwal. Pramod Bagri is a chartered accountant, and he is a data analytics professional with nearly 2 decades of experience in working with some of the world's most renowned organizations across different facets of finance. As part of his role, he has been working with multiple CFO to carve out and implement their digital finance agenda, powered by the automation, analytics, and artificial intelligence. He has been engaged with finance students extensively, and through his book, I would like to bring them lessons that he has been fortunate enough to learn directly from leading CFO of the country. With this, we welcome you all, sir, to this show, and I request now Mr. Pramod Bagri, who is the moderator of this show, to take on the show. Thank you very much for giving me a patient listening, and welcome you all to this on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shuk. Thank you, Mr. Kabra. Thanks for this, and thanks for actually making this happen. It's a very big opportunity for all the people to learn from the top CFOs, right? And to make it interesting, I have a slide deck as well. Let me quickly share that. Hope you can all see the slides. I'll give a second to come back, right? But
yes. Yes, yes. We can see.
Okay, but let me start by sharing my good fortunes. Over the past few years, I have been very fortunate to have been in touch with Mr. Sheth, Mr. Chatterjee, and Mr. Agarwal. And what I came to know was that while all of us know what has been achieved, we often wonder how has it been achieved, right? Which is very important to know, right? So there is this entire context behind these achievements. There is a childhood upbringing. There is the way the career choices have been made. There has been multiple philosophies, or if I may call first principles, with which all of these people operate in, right? And over these past few years, when I started to engage with them, what I also understood is there is a 360-degree transformation in the way the CFO office is run. From the time earlier, say 10-20 years before, and now there is a massive change, right? So what we have done today is to bring about all of this as a package, and just so that we all stay focused on these learnings, what we have done is we have divided the entire thing into 6 different segments, right? And you would see those segments coming in. I have taken the liberty to use few photographs I had of these CFOs right from childhood to receiving the awards to some of their personal spaces. In these 6 segments, you will understand how their early journey was. You will understand what do they really do in their role as a CFO. You would understand, okay, what are some of the first principles or anecdotes or stories that they want to share, bringing out the context on those first principles. I did hear about the campus hiring and all of that. You would get the secret sauce today on what all of these CFOs look for when they hire their candidates, right? And they're next in line, and what is the base principle at which the hiring happens. You would also know something which is at the top of our mind, right? What is the work-life balance look like? I mean, do these CFOs really get some time off? How do they manage their life, right? And then more importantly, about if there is any advice, right? See, I would give you one recommendation as we start off, and that recommendation is please keep a pen paper ready by the side. Please, or if you are digitally enabled, please open up your Word document. I have experienced firsthand the kind of personal and professional transformation that it can have on you just by listening to these lived experiences. Let me tell you, experience can never be replaced. The next best thing is to hear on the lived experiences, reflect on our own life situation. I can assure you that these will apply to the life situation we are facing and then apply them, right? So here is an opportunity on this lovely Sunday morning where all of them have taken time out to discuss with us. While I have engaged with them before, every time I speak to them, I have walked away with something new. So I am also looking forward today to walk away with something new. And I am as much excited as all of you. I believe there is a Q&A session in the end. And we have allotted around 15 minutes for that. And we will go through that process towards the end. But let us now go to the first segment. But before that, let me welcome Ajay, Kaushik, Sushil, thank you so much for joining in today. It is fantastic for you to have taken time out today to share your journey. Let's start with the segment first, right? Okay, so the first segment is why did they choose CA as a career and what did the early days look like? So Ajay, let us start from you. I mean, you always wanted to be a CA, or it you kind of figured it out later, and how were your early days, and do you know the person who is on the right of this photo? Over to you, Ajay.
Yeah, thanks. Let me first thank Hansraj ji, Kabra ji for their generous words in the beginning, and let me also thank and compliment Pramod and Sandeep for painstakingly working with all of us to bring out this book, and I hope it will serve as a useful guide for the young professionals. So you talked about my initial journey, and I would like to say a few words here. My journey started during my school days when my interest in academics was keen, and I was particularly good with data and numbers. And that's the time I decided to pursue a career in commerce. And this was in the year 1973. While I was pursuing commerce and I excelled, I made up my mind to have an end goal of becoming a chartered accountant. So it was as early as my school days that I decided that I will have an end goal to become a chartered accountant. The journey, of course, was tough as it needed efforts and hard work, but the end results were good because I met my goal of becoming a chartered accountant. The time spent in article days was very productive as it gave me a vast practical exposure and also the way corporates operate. The exposure that I got during my article days varied from statutory audits to tax, internal audits, and bank audits. But I really cherished that exposure because if you put your heart and mind in what you're doing, that's something that will really take you forward when you are working during your corporate life or even when you're practicing. So either of the two things, this exposure is always very valuable. And one advice that I'll give to everybody is that they must take their exposure during the article days very seriously, and they should work hard and learn from that exposure and not take it lightly. The focus of these audits help, as I mentioned to you, help you in your professional career later. And this is what I also witnessed during my professional career when I started working in corporate. Now, the first choice of job is always very important. And I had a few offers when I started my career. I chose Icai, which proved to be the right decision in giving me a professional platform to operate and also to learn and deliver. There are several learnings that you imbibe when you are in your first job, such as interpersonal skills, business deliverables, managing difficult situations, hard work, and creating your impact in the organization, and also being passionate about what you're doing. I do remember one episode which I like to narrate during my first job, and this is very interesting. We were having a review with the top management for the budget for the year, and I'm talking of the year 1984. And as we normally do, we had put a head of miscellaneous expenses in the budget. And I do remember Mr. Vikram Lal, the then MD, mentioned that the company has no room for miscellaneous expenses. It's a very small thing, but it gave me a big learning that you have to be exact and there is no room for any cushions in the business. In my view, the first job gives you a firm ground for setting up your future journey. So it is important to put your best foot forward and dedicate yourself to the future that you dream. Thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Ajay. Very interesting as usual. We'll come back to you in the next segment, but let me now move to Kaushik. Kaushik, so again, similar question, your choice of CA as a profession, your early days. We have taken the liberty to put out some of your school pics and also some good times with the college mates, hostel mates, I guess. Over to you, Kaushik.
Thank you, Pramod. Good morning to everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chugh, Mr. Kabra, for the very kind introductions, and thank you to the Institute for this platform. I think I would just say that I was a small town boy. I grew up in a steel town, coincidentally. And came from a family of doctors and engineers. My father was an engineer. So with very limited exposure and aspirations, I had a fairly uneventful but exciting first 18 years of my life, which was more focused on extracurriculars than on academics. And I think that was the way in which I looked at life. So unlike Ajay, I was completely unaware of what the professional life looks ahead. And I got exposed to a city life when I went to Calcutta for my undergraduation. And that 8 years that I stayed in Calcutta during my graduation and then the CA was when I went through what Pramod mentioned, the 360-degree transformation, because I was kind of thrown in at the deep end of the pool, not by choice, but essentially by circumstances. And the challenges that I went through during that time helped me to shape my mindset, my perspective of the world, made me strong mentally. And I think every experience during that period has kind of stood me in good stead all through my life. And it taught me to adapt to any situation. I matured faster than my age, and kind of made me more determined to look at life in a more structured and a practical way. And I think it was important for me to say that while I wanted to be a doctor because I was inspired by my grandfather, but I landed up in pursuing a career. I was very clear that I wanted to do a profession. And I think the profession of being a chartered accountant was then becoming more clearer and more attractive. I was warned that on a lighter note that not too many people clear their CAs in those days. And I was told by many that CA stands for come again. So every time you have to give an exam, you might not clear. But that internal determination was something which kind of helped me in structuring myself, training myself, thinking about it, and being diligent in clearing the professional hurdles of becoming a chartered accountant. So that was important. And then I went back to I went to Jamshedpur, and that was more like the similar town which I grew up in, and it was certainly a breath of fresh air. And when I joined Tata Steel, I was fortunate enough to work with the senior management team in Tata Steel, which what it did was, beyond my formal foundation as a chartered accountant, gave me a very wide perspective very early in the career. And that was a very critical thing, because I was not siloed into functional departments. And on one hand, it was a weakness, but then on the other hand, one kind of got a training to look at big picture very early in life. And finally, I would say that one of the experience then was I was again accidentally invited to teach in XLRI. And those 4 years that I taught in XLRI, 4 or 5 years, has been, again, one of my most critical learning years. Because when you teach, everything has to become much more clearer. And when you're teaching a group of 70 students who are very bright, you better be very clear in your concepts. So I think that experience was, to me, one of the biggest learning experience in my early career. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaushik. Looks like a completely different journey, and we will try to summarize and bring this all. Is there a path to the CFO office in the next few segments? But let's stay with the journey for a while. Let's go to the next interesting journey. So Sushil, choice of CA as a career. I do know through my earlier conversation what you were up to, and in fact, incidentally, I took a guess with his, the way he handles himself. But I'll allow Sushil to actually speak about CA as a career and his early days.
Thank you, Pramod, and good morning to all of you. Good morning to Girish and Durgesh for a warm introduction. And good morning to all the participants sparing time on a Sunday morning. And I am thankful to Institute for giving us this opportunity. I'll talk a little bit, Pramod, and maybe I'll get to specific on how I kind of became CA. Actually, I come from a place called Jodhpur in Rajasthan, and actually I grew in Sri Ganganagar, which is again north of Rajasthan, where my father used to be in government service. We had a huge joint family to start with, and it had a significant influence on my life and ambitions. My family always believed education is the biggest asset one can have, and that would never depreciate. So that's the background, and I come from a relatively humble background. We never had a meaningful capital for the business. Hence, education was the only choice. Honestly, during my childhood, I never wished to restrict myself to get into a particular field. However, there was one thing I always been very, very clear in my mind. I had an urge to do things differently. I always wanted to be a place where I could make a difference. So principally what I said is urge to do things differently and where I can make difference. That was the background for myself while I was kind of thinking of my career. In my early days, I was actually even fascinated by the civil services after seeing the government officials in where I grew in Sri Ganganagar. But I didn't really take up that option seriously. Another option, strangely but true, which is possibly I would have been a fashion designer. People close to me, actually, they know that if I would not have been a CA, I would have been another Manish Malhotra possibly. So one of my chacha, my paternal uncle, who was a CA, and another chacha who was a MBA, they actually had a lot of influence and thought they were a really big influence in my career. While my MBA uncle inspired me towards the importance of career, my chacha who was CA, he actually influenced me to pursue CA. Initially, I wanted to go to Chandigarh, by the way, because my lots of friends in Ganganagar, actually they moved to Chandigarh, and I wanted to do CA from there. But one of the early days when I was talking to my chacha, and he kind of persuaded me to come to Delhi, I ended up coming to Delhi for my chartered accountancy. I did my articles from a CA firm called TR Chadda & Company. They just celebrated 75 years of their presence as a chartered accountant firm. Actually, this is one of those old firms when it was before even the CA Institute kind of born, and we had many audits, particularly SAIL, NTPC, IFCI, many government audits the firm had, and had an opportunity to kind of move around in different part of the country while doing the articleship. I used to even come to Bombay for some of those articles. However, I was always in a dilemma about my career, whether I should remain in Delhi or go elsewhere post my qualification. I stayed almost a year with the same firm before I kind of took a view that I must get into a job. I although loved Delhi, but I preferred Bombay over it from a work point of view, and kind of applied for a few jobs in Bombay. As a result, I actually ended up meeting Mr. Vinod Saraf. Vinod Saraf was a head of project division in Grasim in Aditya Birla Group, and he also used to be the MD for Mangalore Refinery, a joint venture. I think it is one of those early joint venture in oil refinery with government, and we were trying to set up 3 million tons refinery. Mr. Saraf actually offered me a job based out of Delhi. They were setting up a project office in Delhi, and he wanted me to kind of head that particular space. And he really kind of gave me lots of angles around Bombay, how difficult Bombay is, and why I should not come to Bombay. But I was also a bit little adamant, and I kind of decided that Bombay is the place. And finally, looking at my view, he allowed me to join in Bombay, and that's how I kind of joined the group in actually on 28 December 88, almost 30 odd years now. And I think I didn't got another job, so I continued with Aditya Birla Group. So I'll talk about various different part of the group where I moved, but over to you, Pramod.
Thank you, Sushil. So just the first segment is about getting to know the people who have made it to the largest companies as CFOs and made that company grow, right? I mean, you now get that there are different parts of the early journey, right? But the underlying part is doing well in things that you decide to do well in and pursuing with perseverance, right? So if you see that, and the third part I got was give before you take, right? The entire thing around the teaching part of it, and then making sure that you get thorough with the teaching part of it. All of that kind of comes well, right? Now this gives a nice segue into the second part, and then we spoke about it. Okay, the early journey happened, right? And then the CFO's role did come through. Now, I did mention about the 360-degree transformation of the CFO office. So needless to say, the CFOs have been talked earlier as bean counters, as people who are responsible for the true and fair view of the balance sheet. Needless to say that these are hygiene factors, right? This has to happen. There is no taking away that from, the CFO's role. But what I realized is that the CFO's role has actually grown quite a bit, right? So can we bring portions of the role that otherwise it may not be that visible, right? So let me start with a very interesting thing, Kaushik, with you. You have been an ambassador of ESG and climate change, been on multiple committees. How important is climate change, ESG for a CFO today? And what do they do in this area currently?
Thank you, Pramod. So I would say that this interest came out of a lot of my readings that I had over the years. And there is, I didn't go to any executive development program to learn about this. It was kind of a self-learning because, at the end of the day, there is no professional syllabus that can set you up for your entire professional life. So you have to change with times. You have to get your craft more developed over time, and the best person to do that is yourself. So somewhere around 2012 or 13, I started getting exposed to the integrated report, which is the report which takes into account the 6 capitals and integrates financial and non-financial measures. And set me thinking that as a finance personnel, as a CFO of a company, we are responsible for reporting of the outcomes of the company. And as you mentioned, the true and fair view is what's certified by the auditors. We have to ensure the financial controls are in place, etc. And that's pretty much the foundation of a CFO's role. But along with treasury and M&A and all the other stuff that was going in. But fundamentally, if you step back and look at what is the purpose of a corporation, what is the purpose of business? It is essentially for decades been to create shareholder value. The capital market, our financial systems are all focused around this purpose. But as we look ahead, and especially now, 8-9 years since that journey started for me, the purpose of the business is also to look at how do we preserve the natural capital, how do we create the balance on the social capital, how do we utilize financial capital effectively. And at some point in time in this journey in the world of corporate, the shareholder value primacy has overtaken the stakeholder interest and stakeholder value perspective. And because there has been no organized shareholders a lot more organized from that perspective. So you have your customers, you have your suppliers, you have the community, you have employees, you have the the whole ecosystem, the regulators, everybody is a stakeholder in a corporation. And to sustain a corporation over decades is one of the key purpose of any board or any management. And if you have to do so, you have to look at from a larger perspective, which is why I looked at the purpose of the corporation more fundamentally. And the purpose of the corporation is to create sustainable stakeholder value. And if you look at that, then you have to put attention on the other stakeholders as well. And fundamentally, the one stakeholder is essentially the natural capital owner, which is all of us for every corporation. And that actually got me started on this whole journey. And I believe, as you would have looked at the recent IPCC report, it says code red for humanity. Fundamentally because we have to repurpose ourselves to ensure that we can sustain this world first before a corporation or a company or a society can sustain itself. So I think this is something which will become the fulcrum of the future of business, and it will involve every one of us, whether we are students, whether we are professionals, whether we are corporate, whether we are a government, whether a country or a continent. And I think, therefore, the finance function will see a faster evolution from just financial reporting to corporate reporting, which is already including a large part of stakeholder reporting. And fundamentally, the business has to focus on profit, not from the planet, but profit along with the planet, and look at the strategy, the implementation, the financing, the reporting on ESG, because these sustainable development goals, which has been very nicely developed by the United Nations, those 17 sustainable development goals will become the focus of the entire business, and therefore CAs, finance professionals, CFOs, CEOs, everybody will have to focus this as their core purpose while devising strategy, implementing strategy, or in terms of running an organization. So I think nothing is more important today than to focus on sustainable development of every corporation. And I think all large corporations across the world are very focused on it. And I think the Institute is doing great work in that. I do have a exposure into what the Institute of Chartered Accountants in India are doing. And my urge to all students, professionals, is to focus on this subject and be a deep learner because it's an evolving subject, and every day is a new way of looking at this whole purpose. And I think this is very passionate to me, and I think it's important for the profession too.
Thank you, Kaushik. It's a very compelling thing, code red for humanity, and don't profit from the planet, but along with the planet, and very good advice on getting our hands-on experience, if possible, with deep expertise on this area. It's going to impact all of us in the future. Let's move on, and Kaushik did touch about the overall value. And Sushil, I'll come to you on the value creation. Many people who know you also, tell Sushil is a deal maker, right? And a lot of that comes through as well. Do you want to talk about the CFO's role in the value creation, across the paradigm of finance and the organization, of course?
Yeah, thanks, Pramod. And I think, Kaushik really kind of talked about shareholders' value, and I'll not talk very differently, but I'll possibly pick up a different way to articulate the same point. I think there has been a significant shift from the finance used to be many years back. The role of finance professional have actually evolved from that of custodian to controller to the value creator. That has actually shift has taken place. Today, finance professionals are equally partners of the growth. Especially, Pramod, to your point, in context of our group, the value creation drive is led by our chairman, Mr. Kumar Munam Birla himself. And all we know that Mr. Birla is one of the greatest CA of all times. Mr. Birla have two clear objectives: to create leadership businesses and simplify the overall group structure, because us is another legacy businesses, and there are many cross holdings, and he wanted to kind of create a pure play in companies wherever there is a possibilities. He wanted to consolidate a similar kind of businesses and create a industry leadership in the process, and create value for the shareholders in the process. I think I'll talk about when I was in Aditya Birla Nuvo, one of the group company. That company itself is kind of a mini Aditya Birla group. So many businesses within the same company. It had various industrial manufacturing businesses, and it was kind of by name Nuvo itself reflects that it was seeding new businesses. So we had fashion retail business part of the same company. We had financial services business. We had a BPO arm sitting out of that business. So there were services business and manufacturing businesses, and in a situation where there are lots of capital call from the new so-called new services business, and particularly a business like financial services would really need a large capital, and I want to kind of give you a sense of how the capital allocation also plays while you are trying to kind of achieve the objective of value creation. So manufacturing businesses in the case of Nuvo had a limited generation of cash or a period of time, but the need was much greater, and meanwhile we were doing some of these stuff. The group had acquired a global company in carbon black space. So India asset which we had a presence in the same space in carbon black from Nuvo. So we had a Nuvo which was owning a carbon black business, and a group acquired a large global carbon black company. And again, to kind of have a meaningful leadership position, what we did was we divested carbon black business of Nuvo to kind of at a group level. So created a leadership business, second largest global company of the global company. Meanwhile, releasing cash for Nuvo to kind of fund growth businesses in financial services and in fashion retail company. In fashion, by the way, some of you may know that Nuvo had their own specific brands like Louis Phillips, Van Heusen, Alan Solly, and all of that. So we were broadly a menswear fashion company in the country. We were not having presence in women's wear and the kids wear, and that's the segment which was growing a little more rapidly. And we wanted to kind of fill up those gaps, and we ended up acquiring Pantaloon. So Pantaloon became a subsidiary company for Aditya Birla Nuvo, and again the same concept of bringing similar business at one place. So we demerged the Madura fashion business into Pantaloon and created India's largest fashion retail company, which is today called Aditya Birla Fashion Retail. In the process, we have got all the business together, created a shareholders value, because this was an independent listed company then. We also, as I said, we also had two similar businesses. One was on BPO space. Again, reasonably large business for us, global business, around $450 million business for the company. But given the capital allocation challenges, at some point of time we felt it that where do we put our larger capital? Would financial services give us a better return and shareholders value, or maybe a BPO business? We ended up exiting BPO business, although as I said, it was still a reasonably large business for the company, and kind of put in capital for the growth of financial services business. And before actually the last leg of the bigger restructuring was we eventually ended up merging the Aditya Nuvo itself with Grasim, because Grasim and Nuvo had a similar kind of businesses on manufacturing side, and we wanted to kind of create Aditya Capital, which is our which is our financial services company. So we merged these two companies, Nuvo and Grasim, and kind of demerge a new company in financial services called Aditya Capital. And I remember this particular action itself had created over $10 billion specific shareholders value. So there are multiple things, multiple challenges, and you need to kind of keep thinking what is right for your own strategic objective, what is right for the shareholders value. Over to you, Pramod.
No, thank you, Sushil. In fact, it makes all of us think how limited all of the general perception of the CFO role is, and how wide, the CFOs end up doing things, right? I mean, all these value creation, all these details around what works for the company, for the shareholders. And it is true that the CFO today is the co-pilot with the CEO. There is no doubt about that. They kind of work hand in hand to make sure what is best for the shareholder gets done. Let's move a little here, and Ajay, I'll come to you on this. You have been a huge proponent of integrated financial reporting, so we do all understand the financial reporting, which is the true and fair view, but looks like that there is a lot more to be achieved with integrated financial reporting. There is an emergence of integrated financial reporting. Do you want to talk about that a bit to all our attendees?
Sure. Thank you, Pramod. I think this has been articulated very well by Kaushik, and the emphasis on integrated financial reporting is now enormous. I've been talking to investors regularly, and for the last many years, I've found that one of the ways they look at an organization or a corporate is in terms of their integrated financial reporting, which gives them a good perspective of what is the long-term sustainability objective for the company. And I think it is very important in terms of what is the larger goal for the company for all the stakeholders. I would try and give you some examples of integrated report, the way we have worked on various aspects of ESG and how it has evolved over the period in our company. For example, for the environment, what we have been doing is our cars are the most fuel efficient cars and have least CO2 emission in the Indian passenger vehicle industry. On our efforts, along with our parent company, where we are embarking on a journey towards carbon neutrality, our focus on 3 Rs, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. So this is something that we are very focused on. For the society as a whole, the CSR initiatives in the area of skill, sanitation, road safety. We have also worked on the areas of building up hospitals and schools for the overall welfare of the society, and our support during COVID to the country and state and central government on our skill development programs that we run to train manpower so that they can be utilized in industry and in other areas. We've also been very focused on our employees in terms of building their needs, long-term needs for their housing colonies, for their medical benefits post their retirement and so on. This does not end here, because we also are very focused on the supply chain side, where we try and train the workforce to improve overall quality of business and work with supplier partners to adopt these latest standards of ISO and the other quality standards, safety management systems to improve their occupational health and safety practices. So some of the leading things that we have been doing under the ESG program and under the triple bottom line reporting, which basically is at the essence of what today corporate should be doing and what I think is the expectation from society at large. And I think as we go along, and as you know, environment is now the key concern. some of these are aspects that we are working on, and I think the other corporates are working on, as even Kaushik mentioned. This is going to take prime importance, and this is what will drive value for organizations moving forward. And I am a firm believer that integrated financial reporting should be done with an intent of executing it and not on paper. So it should be in spirit, in letter and spirit, and not just a paper exercise. It's very, very crucial. It's very relevant in today's context and in the future context. And this is something that's going to lead the corporate world forward. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ajay. And if I think about this segment too, first of all, let me confess to the attendees, I couldn't cover everything a CFO does. And in my conversation, I did understand a lot more aspects that are covered. But you got a glimpse that it is far more than the true and fair view of financial, which anyway is hygiene. We spoke about ESG, we spoke about integrated financial reporting, climate change, we spoke about mergers and acquisitions and shareholder value. The institute has been doing a lot of work around it, a lot of material available both at the institute, material gallery or, online. It is for us to be prepared for learning, right? And that kind of gives a nice segue to the next one. And maybe the learnings are anecdotes from the life journey, right? So we have spoken about the personal, kind of how it all shaped up as a CA. And then we spoke about, what do the CFOs do broader than what the normal perception can be. Now let's shift gears. There are going to be a lot of interesting stories, and maybe first I would come to Sushil on this story. I was truly fascinated actually when I heard this story for the first time on the corporate governance, right? And Sushil, if you recollect, this story I'm mentioning is about a story about the pulp price. If I recollect it right, between the conversation with Mr. A.V. Birla and Mr. B.K. Birla, right? And they both were negotiating, right? So would you want to talk about that a bit to all the attendees, to really say that, many times as a CFO, how do you get these learnings imbibed into the way we operate?
Yeah, thanks, Pramod. That's very, very interesting, and it's personally actually touched my and I got a lot of clarity post that conversation. So I'm talking of early 90s, I said I kind of ended up joining in project division of Grasim, and I just want to kind of connect. Immediately a year later, Mr. Icai Birla had called me and he said, "Okay, Sushil, you have a two choice. Either you can go overseas to one of our plant, or you can join my office." To be fair, actually I was not interested in either. But for a variety of reasons, I ended up joining his office. So early days in his office, one day I happened to be in his cabin, and he was on phone talking to his father, Mr. B.K. Birla, and they were quite engaged on a negotiation, as you said, on a pulp. So Mr. B.K. Birla, as most of you know, that he has his own industry empire. He runs his own company. And so do Mr. Icai Birla. So Icai Birla Group is very different from B.K. Birla Group in that context. And there is a company called Century Textile, which was part of B.K. Birla Group. And they actually produces a pulp, which is a key input for one of our business company in the group. Indian Rayon actually uses that pulp. And they were really kind of negotiating and hard discussion going on. And I was standing and I was furious. I was not sure what's going on. After a while, when they kept the phone down in my own way, although I it's very difficult to challenge your boss. In my own way, I kind of asked him, "Sir, why were you haggling with your father? At the end of the day, this was within the family." So the question was whether you pay 1 rupee extra or he takes 1 rupee lower, it's going to remain in the family. I distinctly remember he going back to his chair like this and says, "Sushil, you are right, but we both were doing our part of job. He's responsible for separate set of shareholder, and I'm responsible for a separate set of shareholders. To me, this was a great learning, because in early 1990s, corporate governance word, at least I had not heard, and I don't think it was coined by then in the country as a formal corporate governance word. But of course, Birla Group was practicing this whole governance from not only 90s. In my mind, they were from very early days. So that was one big learning for me, and that actually remains always in my mind, that how to differentiate, how to kind of make sure that although it's part of family, but how do you differentiate between two sets of shareholders? Pramod.
No, this was fascinating when I heard, and many of these choices that we end up making. I mean, this set a benchmark. Two people in the same family, talking and making sure that the shareholders of each benefit. I also recollect another instance, Sushil, you spoke about the legal cost, conundrum, if I may call, where the conversation was between Mr. K.M. Birla and you, and it was about some legal cost. You want to just bring that as well, because it kind of connects back well to this learning on corporate governance.
Yeah, so I think the story continues. I was in Mr. Ayat Birla's office. His untimely kind of death. Mr. Kumar Manan Birla, he took over early or mid 1995 or October 1995 actually, and very early days of Mr. Kumar Manan Birla as a chairman of the group, and we had taken a legal opinion from a reputed law firm in the country. The law firm actually invoiced that the bill in public companies name, because there were two companies involved in that and discussion. One was a company in public domain, and one was in a private domain. So the law firm actually built into a public company. I myself was unsure, and I wanted to take Mr. Birla's view. So I had sent him a small note on this issue, and a few days later, one of the next Saturdays, when we were cleaning up various other pending issues, I brought up this subject to him, and I remember he calmly kind of asked me, Sushil, I also want to talk to you, and he said, okay, who actually got benefited the most from this opinion? And I took a couple of seconds to kind of realize why did he ask this question. And meanwhile, I got my answer, and I pulled out that note. I ended up debiting that cost to the private company, because the private company got the larger benefit out of that opinion. I think this again kind of reflects the governance. It reflects that as a group, we kind of practice the trusteeship concept, and it helped me understanding the spirit of trusteeship and good governance. So again, Pramod, very small issue, but it leaves a great impact in your mind, and you kind of, as and when you are in a conflict, you kind of remember these incidents and kind of take a right decision. Over to you.
No, absolutely, Sushil. In fact, this had a huge impact in the way I looked at things once I spoke to you, and it kind of brings the clarity that the best thing to do is the right thing, right? And if we stand by that, nothing better. One of the things maybe I would like to, maybe just pause in a related topic, but still unrelated, is that what we have seen as a pattern, that if you could get seat at the table at a very early part of your career, if there is a role in which you get a seat at the leadership table, nothing like it, because the learnings that you get from all these leaders are going to be phenomenal, right? So if there is going to be a role for you, especially the students who have joined the call today, aspiring finance professionals, if you get a seat on the leadership table, that's a very good role to pick up if you aspire to be a CFO and make a large impact. right? And you would see all these conversations that happened early on, right? Now just moving, and this is again, I feel a very classic one. Ajay, I'm coming to you. And we were very, taken aback during my conversations with Ajay, where he seemed to be very uncomfortable with comfort. So whenever there was a comfortable position, he will kind of start thinking it over and saying, something I have to do now, right? So we can call it loosely as the Goldilocks principle in management, where you are just at the edge, but this is something a bit more, right? So, Ajay, you want to talk about this entire first principle around being uncomfortable with comfort and what it means to you, and any anecdotes with that?
Yeah, sure. I think one thing I would like to mention before I deep dive into it is about the fact that when we have our risk management meetings in Maruti, one risk that we discuss thoroughly is the risk of complacency. And I believe that organizations which starts doing very well have the biggest risk of complacency, and that can, really take them down. And therefore, the need to be always on your feet and, be prepared. So my take is that comfort of any kind can really pull you down. So one has to remember the big fall comes when a corporate becomes complacent. There were days in JCB when I took charge of finance, and these were early days where I decided to automate systems and processes. And this was a time when automation was still at a primitive stage. We were working on very primitive systems and processes. And this was a time I thought this is a time to take the challenge and work on automation and processes that needs to be standardized. Set up best practices, because we had a parent, we had learnings from, and we thought that we will set up the best practices and work on them. And later, when we were on a steady state, I thought it is about time to look at further process improvement. And we worked on things like business process re-engineering, and we worked on a strategic business plan, which was a very big exercise that we did. And I think the team was complimented by JCB that such an exercise has been of tremendous value for the organization as a whole. And it was heartening to see when I recently visited JCB that they had displayed a copy of the strategic business plan in their brand center. This was my first big exposure on being discomfortable with comfort. While working with Escorts, there were various projects that I led in implementation of ERP. And that meant change management, that meant setting the culture right, because people are so much used to a particular way of working that any change they try to resist. And job really is to put them into that discomfort and then align them to get to the right way of working. Treasury in those days was a tough job. The tractor industry was going through a very bad phase. There was an inventory built up, and the job was to ensure liquidity at the right cost. Liquidity itself was a big issue. Getting money was not so easy. And on top of it, there was this issue of getting it at the right cost. And that required working on structures to create a balance between liquidity and cost. When I joined Maruti, which is about 17 years ago, we were a fast-growing company, and we needed to address standard operating procedures, the internal control framework, and compliance management, besides ensuring digital interventions. There were mergers that required alignment, evaluations, etc. And there have been many other areas like tax planning, continuous drive on cost control, managing supply chain ecosystem, and treasury management that required continuous innovation and risk management. Being a listed company, regulatory framework and constant updation and training of employees is undertaken. And the stretch continues as we move on. The way we work is also that while we are very uncomfortable with comfort, we also make sure that all our supply chain partners also work with the stretch. And there are various boundaries that we have laid down, and we get involved in it in terms of ensuring their financial health, their quality health, their production system, their management systems, to have an ecosystem where the whole supply chain works in a synchronized manner and in the most efficient manner. And I think that is what can really take the company forward, because you cannot on your own, if you're doing well, it's fine. But if your supply chain is not up to it, there will be the red flags of theirs would be coming on to you. So it's very crucial and important that the entire system works with an element of stretch, with an element of discomfort, and there is no room for complacency whatsoever within the system. And that's the kind of culture that we have set in over the years. And this is something that was imbibed in me right from the beginning, right from the Icai days that I've been working, that you have to take the next league, where if you've reached a certain goal, don't stop there. Now start to take the new challenges, put the team on a stretch, make sure that there's so many other things that you need to do in terms of improvement, in terms of efficiency, in terms of productivity, and address the entire ecosystem, just not the company. And that's the endeavor with which we have been working, and doing away with this aspect of being comfortable at any given point in time. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And many times, what the professionals will realize is there is so much stress in the system, but one of the reasons we are there is also that there is stress in the system, right? So being uncomfortable with comfort is a very good philosophy to go by. Another thing we did note is about the treasury role, and one of the other nuggets I did gather from the CFOs was that all of these CFOs have handled cash at some point in their career, right? The treasury itself, right? So it's very important for professionals to also choose roles that allows them to handle cash. So that's the second nugget I thought I'll give you. But before that, after that, let me quickly go to Kaushik. Kaushik, this particular thing has stuck with me, the sola nobilitas virtus. That is, the nobility is the sole virtue in life, right? And it seemed to have a big impact on you, on the way you operate overall as well. You want to just take us through that, any anecdotes from the life journey on that, and why do you think it is very important to go by this motto?
Yeah, I think this is the motto of my school, St. Patrick's in Asansol, and life is a journey of experience, and not all experiences are always happy experiences, but the psychological richness of experience is when your perspectives get formed and changed. And that is most important. From each one of us goes through, as you heard Ajay, you heard Sushil, each one of us goes through small experiences, and our perspectives change. And to me, nobility and integrity and to be inclusive are critical values, which kind of learning from my family as I grew up, and from the school. And that has remained with me, because that defines the personal culture of an individual. And I think every one of us have our own personal culture, which we call trait or behaviors or whatever. And this doesn't happen overnight. It gets shaped over a period of time based on the experiences that we have, what we read, the situational experiences that we gather along our way. And it is important that we tend to sharpen it every day of our life. And I think that's important. So one of the things which has always been with me, and as you mentioned a number of times, that exposure to senior leadership and the example that Sushil gave, I've also been fortunate to be as a fly on the wall with a lot of senior leaders in Tata Group and in Tata Steel, and kind of reflect on some of the decisions that they take, and put myself onto that position and say, would I have taken a different view, or what was the learning that I could get from merely observing their way of going about things? And that sometimes are important inputs in your mind. It remains in the back of your mind, and you keep refining on all of that. Working inclusively, working holistically, and looking at long term is something that has always been kind of been part of my mental psyche. And I think I take you to one example, though in the book that you've written there are others, but in 2004-5, we signed an agreement with the government of Odisha to set up a steel plant in Kalinganagar, and we signed an MOU, and in the MOU we said we will build the plant in 48 months, and we acquired the land, which was a government land. But when we went to take possession of that land, we found there were some 5,000 families who are in that land, and it was a government acquired land. So essentially there are people who have stayed on in the land for maybe 20 years, and nobody has told them that this is not the land that you don't own. And there were villages, there were hamlets, as you can imagine, 5,000 families is a large number of families on a plot of land, which was about 2,500 acres. And when we went there, there was no recognition by them that this land did not belong to them. It was basically saying, okay, so be it, but we've been here. So when we went back to the government, and there was an unfortunate incident where they were trying to be forcibly kind of taken out. But we went to the government and said, this is not how we work, and we want to engage with them. We want to understand their issues and how can we give them better quality of life, because it is a shared prosperity, a shared approach. The first thing that we gave them is actually a card, which was like an identity card, which was called the Parivar card. The first thing that you give to people, and they were actually quite, I wouldn't say hostile, but they were pretty much engaged in staying where they are. And as you know, land issues are sensitive in India. So we gave them that card and we started engaging with them. They spoke a very different tribal language. It's called Ho. And we got people from Jamshedpur and elsewhere in our mines who could speak that same language, because it was important for us to first get an engagement with that community and understand. They don't know, it is in Odisha and it is close to Jamshedpur. They live in their own world, and they are not people who recognizes corporate so easily. So we spent, believe you me, 5 years to engage with them, to bring them on board in trying to understanding our vision and how can our vision help in improving the quality of lives of those people. And we created an alternate place where we created space, housing, vocational training center, jobs, hospitals, all of that in another place. And it didn't happen overnight. So each hamlet was accessed one at a time, and they would then agree to move. And we had, and as usual, as a corporate, first thought that we will build a colony for them. And they said, no, we don't want a colony. We want a similar hamlet where we are staying. So we actually created hamlet based on the designs, but with better sanitation, better construction, etc. And then they volunteered to move, and each family or each hamlet then moved to that place. And we gave them support, we gave them livelihoods, we upgraded their skills, gave them education, set up hospitals. So I think, as our founder said at one time, a century back, that what comes from the society must go back to the society. It was an important process, and there I couldn't do my financial modeling and say, this is not working. I had to look at holistically, I had to look at long term. We had a fantastic team, both financial and from the business. And it actually was a journey which today that place is a thriving plant, getting into an 8 million tons in a couple of years. It's already producing. It's one of the benchmark lighthouse plants from a digital perspective. But this was built around 6-7 years of very hard work without a definitive view in front. And these kind of experiences have helped us elsewhere. It has helped us in the UK, where we restructured a 16 billion pounds pension fund, which was attached to the company. And there are over 130,000 people, 130,000 pensioners associated with it. So even there, we looked at it more holistically and said, how could it be restructured to ensure there is a financial balance and there is a stakeholder balance. And that is a very important experience, which, as I said, these two experiences are a standout for me. And I always get comforted that I'm in the right place of my profession. So I think these were two such great attributes. And in the last 12 months, when we went through the pandemic, we obviously cash became the most critical element. And we set up the cash war room, which it continues even today. And the first thing is always often to cut the creditors' payments. But we know that they are also in the same state as we are in. So we have kind of found balances, ways to collaborate, ways to ensure support to each other and look at it more holistically and long term rather than just reacting on the spot. Thank you.
No, thanks, Kaushik. And another thing that did come through very clearly in the CFO's connect and traits to be a CFO was the ability to connect to the larger social cause, the ability to connect with people as a underlying factor, right? Which also came. So whatever will make a people impact is a good role again to pick up. Thanks for all those anecdotes. And as we may imagine, we are running behind schedule. This is interesting conversation, but we also would take a Q&A. So we would be a little quicker now. Of course, if there is any portion that you seem, the attendees feel that it's left out and they want to cover, there will be a way in which the Q&A will work, which the organizers will share. But coming to a very interesting section, right? So Ajay, if I want to get hired at, say, Maruti, what are the traits you look for? How do you do the hiring at Maruti? And all of us will be a real quick, maybe couple of minutes each to go through the other segments.
Sure. So while hiring someone in Maruti Suzuki, besides his technical competence, I will look at his analytical ability, his career aspirations, longevity in staying with the company, and also his ethics and value system. I like to invest in a person who has the ability to take initiative, can deal with tough situations, and can manage internal and external environment. So that's my take for somebody that I would like to take in the company.
Okay, so the analytical ability, so attitude as well, along with the technical competence. So that's the theme emerging. So if you aspire to be in Maruti, please do, look for all of this and while you go to the interview, right? And Kaushik, I'm coming back to you on this, and you have always emphasized this entire thought about lifelong learning and how I could also relate to the way you kind of picked up ESG and self-learned yourself, and now one of the global think tank on this particular topic. What are some of the new age skills that one must learn to be successful in finance today, and how to develop this entire attitude of being lifelong learner?
So I go back to what I said earlier, that there's no syllabus in any profession that can prepare you for a full professional life. To be a successful professional, and I think it applies to any profession, you have to be a deep learner. Deep learning is important. Learning for your course and learning for your exam is one part of it. So I think the habit of self-learning, self-motivating is very critical. It is important to remain humble and calm while doing so, and not be arrogant and be abrasive to say I know it all, because all of us know very little of everything. So I think the new age CFO or new age finance professional has to be, as Ajay mentioned, deeply embedded in analytics, deeply embedded in the digital understanding of the digital world, whether it is robotic processing or whether it is in using tableaus or any other real-time analytical platforms. Scenario planning is a very important mental state, because you have to look at this world is a world where we are seeing outages and outrages. And I think it is important for us to understand that we are not in a static world. It changes very quickly, and therefore scenario planning is a very important understanding that one needs to have. And finally, I think based on what we are seeing, understanding of geoeconomics is a very critical part of one's armory, and it is important for finance people to get that rounded view, and nothing is out of the syllabus. So if there is a book which is relevant, if there is a program that is relevant, or if there is even on a YouTube, if you get to hit something, just go through it, because nothing is out of the syllabus. Keep learning, keep gathering the experiences on a practical basis. That should hold you in good stead.
That's fantastic, Kaushik. And I did notice you still are a very prolific learner. And this is a message for all of us, right? To keep learning. Many of you who have joined the program are already doing through these experiences. But this entire thing, so of course there is going to be syllabus to pass the CA exam, but even then for you to get hired in and then into a good organization, for you to get a good role and then excel in that role, and also for a personal kind of the best kind of a scenario, I think this lifelong journey is a very good topic to pick up, right? And now moving on to Sushil, and one of the things I have noted, Sushil, is the retention ability that you have with people. You know, all are long timers with you as well, right? So what's that secret sauce? How do you hire and retain talent? You know, how do you keep them motivated to go on?
Yeah, so I think Pramod, there is no standard recipe. There is a very thin line of difference between organizational success and failure, and that thin line, in my mind, is people. People, as we all and Kaushik talked about, Ajay talked about, people are the most important asset of any organization. Therefore, it is very crucial for any organization to attract and retain the best talent. Competitors, as we say, can imitate products, acquire tangible assets, technology, but they cannot replicate an effective and committed workforce. That, to me, is the biggest thing. It is very important for any organization to retain talent and keep them very, very motivated. We should respect their desire and their aspiration, and align them with the company's goal. That's the way I kind of think, because their aspiration and the goal of the organization also have to kind of have some linkages. In our case, we try to kind of ensure an ample amount of freedom is given to the employee, even while keeping a watchful eye. According to me, job satisfaction is key to extracting best out of the employee. I encourage employees to take up higher responsibilities, which help enhancing job satisfaction and creating the second line of managers. I actually kind of keep telling people that for our 24 hours, we should have a 48 hours job, because you don't kind of get defocused in a manner. And we have successful succession planning at a group level, and most of our positions are normally filled internally. This helps create attract kind of growth opportunities for the existing set of people. And while this whole pandemic was going on, and I am completely in a different way quoting this particular thing, because learning is continuous. So I was reading Sundarkand. Some of you may know the Sundarkand is a kind of religious book, and there is a piece where Hanumanji, so-called, he was supposed to kind of go and find out the Sita's where is she, and he comes back. He comes back and he straight goes to Sugriv, and Sugriv is his immediate boss, not Lord Rama. Although he did such a superlative job, he could have easily gone to God Rama and he would have loved it. But he goes to Sugriv, tells him, Sugriv takes him to Lord Rama. So there is a corporate learning out of this. And from a people perspective, another piece which I learned out of that while I was reading, because we sometimes actually fear. We sometimes fear of not telling the truth. So there is some quote which says, okay, we need to kind of make sure the doctors or as an advisor, you don't need to be fearful. You must tell the truth. And those who do not tell, the organization, the kingdom will fall. So we always should be truthful. Whenever we believe that there is something which you need to tell the organization, we should have a courage to get up and kind of tell what is right. So over to you, Pramod.
No, thank you. And let me tell you, I have learned something new with that Sugriv example in a situation I am facing, right? So anyway, and always it comes through, right? Just to let all the panelists know, we have 20 questions already that has come on my mobile through the online chat. So we are going to pick that. I know Kaushik has to leave at 12. So we will quickly go to Kaushik for his other segments as well. And Kaushik, thank you. I know you had a flight to catch and you have kind of postponed it for us, but let us take a very quick thing, and this has come in the questions as well. What is life outside work for you? Because you people would be really very busy, right? So this segment talks about how does your day look like? How do you manage? How do you keep sanity and have a work-life balance? What are some of your reading list and other inspiration? Maybe a quick one there, and then I'll quickly take your feedback on the other questions, and then we will move on. Over to you, Kaushik.
Thanks, Pramod. So I can stay. I just wanted to also tell you. So I'll.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kaushik. Yeah, go on.
See, my day in life pre-COVID was very much on travel, because I used to travel like crazy, both in India and more abroad. So it is, so I have a MOU with my wife, which is essentially to ensure that I invest in the family over the weekend. So understanding is wherever in the world we are, I am on between Monday and Friday, I come back home, either on Friday night or on Saturday morning, to ensure that I spend the 48 hours with the family, and 48 hours also invest in myself. So apart from the fact that of late I've kind of, the picture that you show of cricket is something I have missed in the last 10-15 years, and have not had the ability to do that, primarily because of time. But I kind of watched the games, played around, keep investing into yoga and walking. And like in a normal family, I don't have anything extraordinary to do, except that from COVID times, I've become an assistant to my wife on gardening. So that's the other thing that I have picked up as I have a bit more time than travel. But other than that, a very normal life. Do read a lot in terms of areas of interest. And as I said, my people would have figured out that my areas of interest doesn't have any limits. So it is anything that is interesting, that gives you a learning, because reading is your best teacher without behavior. So it just comes as it is, and you can take what you want. You don't take what you don't want to. There is no course or syllabus. But reading is an important part of self-learning, and that's where I spend some time during the day and the weekend. So that's essentially, and of course, investing in time includes investing in time with your parents who are growing old, and it's important part of the overall responsibility to look after friends and families. and be social as much as one can be. That's how my normal life is.
Thank you, Kaushik. I'll make my observations later because a lot of my life has changed interacting with all of you. So I will make those observations for later. But going on to Sushil, who also has a very fuller life, right? I mean, this entire thing about how does your day look like and the work-life balance and your reading list. Sushil, over to you.
So I think possibly all of us, we have a very, very engaged day. So normally I'm up reasonably early, maybe by 5 I'm certainly up. It is the best time for me in the day when I sit down in peace and creates my own priority list of the day. I would clean up my emails immediately in the morning hours and messages. Then I would actually re-energize myself for almost 45 minutes of either yoga or brisk walk, which is what normally I would do. I do not know. I'm not sure if God exists or not, but I believe some power constantly kind of keeps guiding and fills us with energy. I devote a few minutes every day to praying to have a power to make me capable enough to help others. That's what I normally do in the morning. There are few minutes I spend praying strengthening my body and my soul. In normal course, I'm kind of a nature-loving person, and most of my day actually is very, very unplanned in a relative term because there are lots of priorities keeps falling on me. However, as they say, the best thing in the happen is unplanned way. So so I wouldn't say that I'm very, very kind of planned person, and it happens. Lots of things happens unplanned. My normal days full of meetings and keep shuffling between different priorities. As I was saying, I try and push off to bed latest by 11:30. So I'm fairly engaged most of the time during the day, and just before heading to the bed, I'll try and kind of take an update on what's happening around the globe or day's highlight. That's what I would do. And I firmly believe and recommend one should maintain consistency in sleep, which is good for health and body and mind. That's what I like, and that's what my normal day is, Pramod.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Sushil. Actually, what it gave, and I told I'll reserve my comments for the last. What I realized is all of them use their time more wisely. They do a lot of activity. It is not that it is only work. It is a lot of work and life. But you will never find them wasting their time, right? I mean, you will always find them engaged, active, and somehow they bring that energy throughout the day rather than parts of the day. That is one trait I saw. The second thing is they start early to give them that segue to run through that day very, very well, right? And before I go there, on the third thing, I would go to Ajay and you'll understand why. So Ajay, similarly, how does your day look like? How do you make sure the work-life balance happens? What does your reading list look like?
As everyone has said, work-life balance for us professionals is always very challenging. There's so much travel and so many meetings and so many stretch targets that we are all working on day in and day out. But I'm very fortunate that I have a family who has been understanding right from the beginning of my career till now, and we've been able to manage together in terms of priorities by each taking their own course of priorities. Typically, when I also like Sushil mentioned, I also wake up early in the morning. Usually by 5:36 is my wake up time, and I make sure that I do at least a 6 to 7 kilometers of brisk walk every day. This has been my routine for last 2 decades, and I have never missed it. If I miss it, I feel very uncomfortable that day. And even when I'm traveling, I make sure that I am either on the treadmill or I take a walk wherever I am familiar with the place and go for a long walk. So this is a morning routine, but my office starts early, so I start for the office early. And the first thing that I do is to have a quick meeting with my key team members so that we can decide the action for the day and the problems that they are dealing with and how to resolve the problems that we are tackling with. There are several internal and external meetings scheduled as per calendar during the day. One good thing is that we have an open office culture. Any employee can come up to me for any problem that he's facing, and so it's quite proactive. He doesn't have to wait for long to set up a meeting, or so he can just walk up to me and ask me for his concern and issues, and we quickly try and resolve that. The time I get in commuting to and from office, I enjoy listening to the old country music. This is my favorite, and I just unwind myself listening to some good music. Reading is another habit that I've always inculcated. I have been very regular with all the business magazines, all the journals. Some of the management books that I've really relished and I can always relate with are the seven habits of highly effective people, Good to Great, Solve Employee Problems Before They Start. So some of the books that I'm very close with. There are many other books that I read, and reading is a continuous habit. And I think it's a very good habit for everybody because it gives you a good view of the change about what the world is doing, about the softer skills and many other areas that we otherwise miss on our day-to-day work. So that's how my day and my work-life balance progresses. Thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Ajay. And so the theme here is spend time on health, spend time on family, spend time on learning. And more importantly, if you have to do all of this and stay energized, do what you love, right? All of these CFOs have done what they like. And I can tell you with my interaction with them, work is their playground, right? They really enjoy what they do. And that keeps them energized to do a lot more, right? Now, we have a host of questions already on my, so what is happening is you are typing in your questions, attendees, and it is coming and relate to me. And I'm going to ask them in a while. If any of you want to put in more questions, do ask. What we will do is we'll reserve the last 15 minutes for the question. So we have 3 minutes now to get a very important part, right? Final thoughts and advice to a young professional. Sushil, we'll start with you. We'll take a minute each on final thoughts and advice to a young professional from you.
So in my mind, keep your work simple and short. Everything around us is very simple, but we overthink, overdo, and make things complicated. My advice to young people would be to work on sharpening their analytical skills and be able to differentiate between letter and spirit. And as they say, substance over form. That to me is a very, very important thing. And as we keep talking about building a successful career, a person should equally focus on developing people's skill. And remember that a successful leader stands on the foundation of a highly effective team. One should be sensitive to emotion and think from others' perspective. That to me is a very, very important piece. Think from others' perspective as well before concluding whatever we are taking decision. Learning should be a continuous process, as we talked about earlier. One should always be open to suggestion and have the courage to accept failures, because that's how the life is. We don't get what we aim all the time. And one should be confident of one's own action and ensure that they passes the headline test. When one has a courage to stand up before a crowd and take ownership of the things done, and in my mind, if they can articulate that this was done in the best during the best circumstances prevailing at that particular time is when they have passed the headline test. So that's broadly my comment, Pramod.
Thank you, Sushil. Now over to you, Kaushik, on your final thoughts and advice to young professionals.
So I'll start with what my father told me many years back, and it was his view was, whichever profession you choose, whatever you do in life, be a good human being first. And I think it's an important thing for anybody who is starting a professional life or for any stage in life. And be a giver and stand by your values. I think this is the first principle that is very important for all of us to make this world a better place. I think Sushil rightly said that, be confident and secure in what you have, in what you have done. And do that with humility and truthfulness, because it's important that often we say we've achieved a lot of things in life. Actually, we are just one part of a very large universe. The third thing would certainly be to develop your own agenda, your own pathway, and keep sharpening your craft, because as professionals, we need to constantly work on our craft. Otherwise, we will get rusted. So it is very, very critical. And do it in your own way. Do it in the way in which it flows. That's perfectly fine. Keep learning, especially the situational experiences. Every experience has got some learning, small or big, but keep that. And I think give your best for the organization where you work, and that is one filter that will come to you many times in the future as a professional. What should you do? And I think the filter test for me has always been, is my decision making going to be in the best interest of the organization within the values and culture that I have within myself? And I think that can happen when you focus on the effort and not on the outcome. Because when you focus on the effort, it will make it more robust. The outcome will come on its own natural way. And in doing so, be prepared for failures, because life is just not simple, but be determined enough to dust up and continue the journey with equal spirit and equal diligence, because there will be failures, there will be trips and falls, and it happens to all of us in different forms and manner. There will be people who will have misperceptions about you, but all of that is fine. So long you are on a straight and narrow path, it's fine. And finally, I think it's most important to enjoy the journey and keep oneself happy.
Thank you, Kaushik. Over to you, Ajay, for your final thoughts and advice.
So as a child, I remember that when I used to go for my early morning yoga with my father, the two things that I remember that, he used to always tell me was, one, about ethics and integrity. And second, he used to talk about hard work. He said that this is the time when you put in best, and this is something that will work well for you in the long run. So, it's a choice that you have to make, that you enjoy life today and suffer later, or you work hard now and enjoy life later. So these were two very important advices that really had deep impact on me as a child. And I think that's something I really worked on in terms of the teachings that I had from him. To the young professionals, my comments would be that they should, one, dream big. There are very many people that I've seen, many CAs that I interview, they have very limited ambition today. And this is very disheartening, because, they should try and build careers for themselves, which should be big. And that's something that they should all dream for. They should accept challenges. They should take initiative. They should create their brand value. These are very important aspects for them to move forward in life. Besides, now in today's context, adapting themselves to the changing technology, it's also important for them to do a lot of reading, because I find a lot of young professionals now who, after qualifying, they start forgetting about the new changes that are happening in various aspects of business and globally, domestically. They just ignore reading. So it's very important for them to read journals, to read books, to keep themselves up to date. And also, besides not only technical publications, but many other management books which will help them, shape up their career much better. Thank you.
No, thanks, Ajay. And, I would have liked to summarize everything, but there were a lot of nuggets out here for all of you to pick. Hopefully, you took the advice of keeping the pen, paper or the Word document open. Otherwise, I'm sure you can see it live again. But I'm overwhelmed with the questions a bit. I'm just going through them, and I'm just, most of them have stand answered. But let me pick up some questions. So the questions have come to me. It's one interesting question, and all of you have been long timers in the group or organization. So one question that came from Vipin today is, if the company we are working for is good, do you recommend staying with the company for more years and grow along with the organization? I ask this because the growth is slow on career and compensation. Shifting companies will help you with quick money. What is your advice on this? So maybe Sushil, you want to pick this up? Do you want to stay in the I mean, what is your advice on that? Because all the three have stayed quite a lot. What kept you there? I mean, I'm sure you would have got offers from elsewhere also.
So I think, this is always a temptation where, we during our own career, we always would get those opportunities. I think the best thing which even Ajay talked about, Kaushik talked about, the job should give you a satisfaction. It should help you achieving your own internal goals. And if you believe that there is enough freedom, if you can kind of have a job satisfaction, to me, that's the biggest gain one can have. I say in my normal course that we get notice on a regular basis what we do, and sometimes rewards possibly takes a little longer sometime, and that should not bother so far if you believe that you have a conviction that your organization, people around you respect your work. I think to me this whole competition issue, which is very, very important for all of us, but I think that would taken care at some stage. So don't just change the job because you are getting some extra rise. You should look at various other softer aspect. It should eventually be job satisfaction to yourself. That's the way my recommendation would be.
Thanks, Sushil. And maybe I am picking up a question from Rakesh Singhi, and he asks, what are the top 3 out-of-the-box matrices that you would look in your CFO analytics dashboard? Kaushik, you want to take that? What are the top 3 matrices, out-of-the-box matrices you want in your CFO analytics dashboard?
If it is from a finance orientation, or I'm assuming that way, but essentially pivoting business on cash flows is fundamental. And looking at the competitiveness of the business is important. And thirdly, what does the business do for the society? So I think these 3 would be very critical parts in my dashboard.
Okay, interesting. And there is one question which is an interesting question, and maybe we'll pick this up. Surinder Kumar Gupta has asked how to handle upcoming hyperinflation by CFO in personal life and business. I think I'll go to Ajay for this, right? Because I'm sure it's the current impact that is going on. So how do you handle it, Ajay?
So there are a variety of things that you need to do, and it's a continuous journey. You will have cycles of hyperinflation, and you will have other challenges that keep coming in. So companies should be always glued on in terms of how they manage cost overall. Both in terms of their fixed costs and in terms of their material costs. And it's a continuous journey. The efforts towards localization, the efforts that they put in towards value engineering, standardization, and many other efforts that are required, and it's something that's an ongoing journey for an organization to be successful. You have to deal with difficult situations. You will never have a straight line. The organizations don't work on a straight line, because even an ECG straight line means you are dead. So you will have to continue to see the ups and downs and continue to work on that endeavor to ensure cost to be at an optimum level and be ahead of competition at any given point in time.
Thanks, Ajay. And let me start by, apologizing to our other attendees who have asked questions. So Ajay, Bhargovin, Panik, Yash, Shumangala, Swagat, Dilip, Akash, Vipin, my request to you is, and lot more, right? My request to you is, we will not be able to take those questions right now. Please write into either the Institute, CMI and IB, or look up to me on LinkedIn and just put in those questions. I'll do my best to get the answers out, either myself or through the panelists. Thank you so much for attending, all of you. I want to stay on time and leave some time for the vote of thanks. But before that, let me thank the Institute. Let me thank the office bearers, Mr. Chug, Mr. Kabra, for this opportunity. More than anyone, let me thank the panelists for taking time out on the Sunday morning. And I know that I was partly responsible to let go of an MOU, Kaushik. So sorry for that. Thank you all for making it. Thank you attendees for being so engaged. I understand there have been many participants. And over to Ranganathan for a formal vote of thanks. And thanks so much for this program today. Ranganathan, over to you, please.
Sir, thank you so very much. In fact, it is a Cmib of ICI which is obliged to you all for your time and the words of wisdom. We thank honorable panelists, CA Ajay Seth, CA Kaushik Chatterjee, CA Sushil Agarwal ji, and yourself, the moderator, CA Pramod Bagli ji, who are so excellently moderated today's program. Sir, we are deeply indebted to you all for the time you have spared out of a busy schedule and sharing words of wisdom with all of our members. Sir, you have traced your life journey, your growing up years, the challenges you had all faced and how you overcome those. All these make up for a very interesting and inspiring success stories. Your experience with life and profession is in itself an inspiring story. We also thank you for taking the questions of all our participants and answering them. And those whose questions could not be taken up, as CA Bagli ji had said, please write to the Institute. We'll see that you get the answers, may not immediately, but then whenever our dignitaries get time, they'll definitely get back to you on this. And we thank you all the panelists and the moderator for the time, for the wonderful session. Sir, we look forward to having you in future. Thank you so very much, sir. Grateful to you all. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Then good day ahead. Have a good Sunday ahead. And thank you all panelists and everybody. Good day ahead. Bye.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you.